topic of today, Lose the Blues, Nourishing Mental Wellness. So there's all this fighting mental illness and the war against drugs and the war against poverty. And no, we're nourishing wellness. And our Bauman wellness community is really committed to creating conditions of wellness for all and empowering people with education and support and service any way we can. So it's really a delight for me to share the Facilitator platform with my colleague, Christina Wright. Christina, would you introduce yourself to our friends?
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this workshop. It's great to be with everyone. As Ed knows, I come from kind of many different backgrounds that all end up intersecting together. I come from an arts background. I have a bachelor's in theater and a master's in film studies, and I work as a film and television studies instructor at De Anza College in Cupertino. And then I also have done teaching in drama through the Arts Council of Santa Cruz County. And I started my own after-school program called Lights, Character, Action that uses film and theater as teaching tools to teach character strengths and leadership development. And this is kind of another hat that I wear, and kind of another area of work that I got into was I started working with children and youth in neighborhoods, offering neighborhood-based classes to help young ones and preteens develop their inner character strengths, qualities such as love, kindness, justice, and then thinking about what does that mean for me to take these qualities and then be a leader in my community. So I've been working with them in a leadership capacity as well. And then kind of combining all of that, I'm also currently working as a program director for a mental and behavioral services agency called Harmony at Home, located in Monterey County. We have offices in Carmel as well as Salinas. And we work with students, school and community partners all across the county in various programs that are either clinical counseling programs or social emotional learning programs to assist them. So I'm kind of wearing all these different hats and just really enjoying all of the work that I get to do in these areas.
Oh, great. That's so cool. All righty. So here we are, Lose the Blues, Nourishing Mental Wellness. And this is Dr. B right here, the professor and the chef, the founder of Bauman College, a training center for holistic nutrition and culinary arts, and founder of Bauman Wellness, community wellness service, nonprofit, lifelong wellness advocate. I jumped on the wellness path in 1969. So that means I've been doing this work continuously. It's the only work I've done in my adult life for over 50 years. And I love it. I'm excited by where we're at in terms of making a difference in the world and the receptivity that we're getting. I love being a mentor and working with people who are coming through the center and through the school and just being part of our community and community building. So really, I think unity and community is key for our growth. Learning objectives, what's going on with mental illness? Why is there a spike? Really looking at an ecological, social, and metabolic interplay with depression and mental health. And discussing a paradigm shift towards self-care and how to nourish personal and community wellness. The presentation is educational. It's not intended to replace medical diagnosis, treatment, or advice. And to the contrary, we want to integrate. We want to collaborate. We want to use the best of all methods. There's no alternative here. It's one system, one people, one process, and the medical system is really looking for support and guidance because they can't handle the burden of mental illness. So this is interesting. Let me see if I can move my little picture. Oh, that was better. Christina's picture was in my slides. So I'm defining mental wellness as a state of resilience. And to me, resilience is gaining strength through adversity and through challenges and through kind of gathering our energy to not give up. but to push on and gather support within and around us. An agency, which is a state of owning oneself. And me, the other, each of our 12 case studies came to a sense of self-acceptance and self-love, and also actually really finding power in helping others gain agency. And tolerance, which is really dealing with friction and dealing with otherness and difference and irritation. So we need great tolerance to deal with some of the things that are going on out in the world, and a mental wellness is a state of equilibrium, that the inner peace is ours, the inner space is ours. Holding a sense of groundedness and balance is really a big part of mental wellness. So unity in the community is looking at community wellness, because we're interconnected with our community, where justice and equity, diversity, and inclusion is practiced. So that's something that we're addressing and others are addressing. And it's really prime topic of conversation in many different areas. This is an emotional guidance scale. It's interesting, it's a spiral. So there's an upward spiral. At the tippity top is joy and knowledge and empowerment and freedom, love, and appreciation. And there are moments when we experience that. And that's sort of how we are. That's our noble self. And underneath it is this energy and passion and enthusiasm and holding a positive expectation, being optimistic even in the face of challenge, hopeful, and content. So those are characteristics of mental wellness. And then on the downward spiral, boredom. And we see quite a bit of that. People who have not had the opportunity to study and to learn and to grow and to get guidance in spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, social ways are often pretty tuned out and bored. And then underneath that, it sort of worsens towards pessimism and frustration, irritation, impatience. So now we're seeing this agitation moving worse into overwhelm and disappointment and doubt and worry and blame, discouragement and anger. So we're seeing this rash, literally a rash of anger and outrage and inflammation. And even a notion of revenge, blaming people, blaming culture, hating things. You hear the word hate thrown around in conversation all too much. Jealousy, insecurity, guilt, and then very much at the bottom is fear. And that's understandable. Fear, there's a lot to worry about, and grief and depression and powerlessness. So wherever we are, whomever we're with, whatever we're co-regulating, meaning we're sort of managing together, it's trying to move up this scale and identify, oh yeah, I'm stuck in worry, but now I'm actually frustrated. Well, maybe that's better. I'm kind of bored, but I'm heading towards a positive spiral. So recognizing that these are markers along the way can be very helpful. Let's really talk about depression. We live in a sick global society. That's my statement. I just don't have any other way to look at it. There's profound collapse, there's profound illness, profound disconnecting going on. It's been going on, it's systematic. So our systems are not just, they're not fair, they're not equitable, they're not diverse and inclusive. So this is something that we all stand for, is that this is what humans deserve, want, and need, and this is a path to wellness. More than a quarter of America is suffering depression right now. That's just people who go to the doctors and say, I need a pill, I'm depressed. Many millions more, and this is worldwide, it's not just Western world, can't or don't get help because the system is flooded. The system is depressed. The system is broken. So ABC-based program, it's a term I got from Johan Wong, who's our colleague. It stands for affect, behavior, and cognition. So affect is feeling. We build relationship around feeling, around our humanness, around the heart. We touch people when we care, when we listen, when we honor their struggle and their suffering. We don't try to fix them. That certainly doesn't work. So programs that really have arts and affect as a basis touch the healing, healthy part of the person, and then the behavior is, okay, practices, lifestyle, we'll talk about that. And cognition is thoughts and opinions and skills and problem solving and communication. So programs need to be multidimensional to decrease incidence and relief of depression. And there's some in studies that have at least a 20% benefit compared to drug therapy only. Resilience, which I think is actually the value that we're supporting now, the outcome that we're measuring, resilience is enhanced with group programs where significant others learn to practice together in ABC skills. So it's not that I'm depressed, but my family is healthy. We're all stuck or combined. We're not stuck, but we're in systems. We're in family systems and work systems and community systems. So it's really a commitment to build resilience together, and it's actually fun when we can do that. Depressing data is depressing. Depression is the second highest cause. It's a cause of disease globally. And people go, oh, there's heart disease and there's cancer and all those things, and metabolic disorder, diabetes, and obesity. You know how many people are depressed underneath that? Do you know how depression is a driver of behavior? Interesting. What we're looking at with diseases are outcomes of states of being that are not well. And more women are affected than men because of their feeling state, their sensitivity, their hormonal system, and really the reaction to environmental chemicals, which are hormone mimics. Smokers, sedentary, stressed, overweight people certainly report more depression. And people with depression often have, or always seem to have, or at least it correlates directly with a high sugar, nutrient poor diet, with poverty and trauma. So I'm suggesting depression is not a fixed disease. It's not a thing. It's a condition that involves a biological, biochemical, neurological, psychological, sociological, ecological, metabolic, and immune complex. So we could take a long time to unpack that. Depression is I'm tired, I'm unhappy, I'm apathetic, I'm down, I don't like myself, I don't like the world. Okay, that's going on. But within that entity, there are these imbalances, deficiencies, unmet needs that need to be identified and dealt with if people are going to come up and they're going to lose the blues. The mental wellness hypothesis. I have a hypothesis here. The wellness practice, or the lack of it, affects physical, mental, and social health. So you think about, what do you practice every day? Well, you get up in the morning, you have a morning practice. You go to bed, you have an evening practice. During the day, you do what you do. And you may do it with consciousness or you may not. TV watching is a practice. Computer, Facebook, it's a practice. But it's not a wellness practice. So wellness practice, which we'll describe in a positive light, will affect our quality of life and even our longevity. It will certainly affect our mood state, our nerves, our gut, and our brain. And there's data behind this. We have booklets that describe it. Affect resilience and recovery. We're all dealing with recovery. We've lost so much. Our values have kind of gotten compromised. Our system is weak. And again, wellness practice will build vitality and performance, social skills, and a willingness to have inclusion. It takes a certain higher level of getting out of oneself as the center of life into looking at social welfare and collective welfare. And with mental wellness practices, it builds a sense of safety and security. So all of these are things that we aim to test. Christina, could you introduce us to the population you work with?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm living in Salinas Valley, or so the city of Salinas, which is in Salinas Valley. And Salinas Valley primarily is Mexican field workers, is the dominant population in our area. And just to kind of speak to what are some of the mental or behavioral health stresses that I've learned through my relationship building with this population. So my family has been here for about 20 years, and we've just developed so many close friendships. And what's unique about this particular population is that many have come here to work in the fields in order to make money for their families. And some of their family is here with them. Some family is back in Mexico. But they're coming from very difficult circumstances in Mexico. They're coming here to earn money for their family and give their children the best life that they possibly can, and as many resources as they possibly can. But also many are undocumented. And because they're undocumented, they're constantly under the fear of being deported, because it's kind of this double-edged sword that we invite them to come here and work, but then we tell them that, oh, but if you're not here legally, we might kick you out. And there's been a lot of mixed messages, particularly in the past few years, about them being here. So they're under constant fear of deportation. In my very humble opinion, I think they are extremely exploited for their labor, heavily underpaid, and they're working out in the fields 10 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week. So that alone causes a huge amount of mental and emotional stress. Just having to work yourself to the bone, not being secure in your ability to even stay here. A lot of the parents are unable to fully be present for their kids. And so then the older kids in the family then take on the responsibility of being the caregivers for the younger members of the family. And the family may be more than one family living in the same household. So you've got the older ones that are, again, kind of facing this burden of having to then become the pseudo parents in the household. There's a lot of stress that is then inflicted on those children and those youth that are in the families. We have a particularly high rate of teen pregnancies that are in Salinas Valley. And many families are also living at or below the federal poverty line. And lack of financial resources also then trickles down to limitations in their choices just to meet their daily needs. So when it comes to housing or food, they're very limited in what their options are because they are not able to make very much money. So there's just a lot of factors that really play into just the amount of mental and emotional stress that's placed on this particular population.
Wow. You know, we had a storytelling session a couple of days ago, and what came out of it from our host was that women really are under quite a lot of pressure, and also really are really taken advantage of in multiple ways. Is that similar in this situation?
I personally think so. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
What type of food is available to them, and how do they manage food if the mom's working and they have an extended family?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine, I mean, being field workers, I think that there is access to produce. I think when it comes to just other foods in general, I mean, again, when we're talking about just the ability to buy high quality food, you're talking about like a Whole Foods, Trader Joe's versus Foods Co. or Smart and Final, or even buying, bulk at Costco. I don't know that they have the advantage or the privilege or the luxury to be able to drive all the way out to Monterey to buy at Whole Foods. We don't have a Whole Foods in Salinas. They can't afford to shop at Whole Foods. So even their choices that they're able to buy are very limited in the stores that are available to them within a reasonable driving distance for them to be able to shop at and be able to afford to buy.
Yeah, great. Thank you. We'll come back to this group. Can you speak to this one, Christina?
As far as...
Well, just sort of, what this origin of emotional trauma, the term ACEs, adverse childhood events, and if you see any of this in that population you've worked with.
Um, yeah, I mean, and I think these are not uncommon in any particular I don't
That's
know that
right.
these are limited to any particular
That's right.
population. I mean, certainly in our, like in the work that I do at Harmony and Home, we have seen the biggest increase that we've seen within the last year due to COVID is actually a rise in separation or divorce. So the number one trauma that our children in our schools have been facing is parent separation.
Yes.
There has also been domestic violence. There has been neglect. We have had to submit CPS reports for neglect in the household. So yeah, and again, these are, of course, are not limited to our particular population. I think populations all over America are seeing a huge rise in both of these areas.
But you know, this is really an underlying issue for so many people and children who are showing up with disorders, whether it's learning disorders or social disorders or all varieties of things. And it needs to be attended to. It can't be swept under the rug. Taking a medication is not enabling a person to get in touch with and work through some of these issues, which are often are limited to economics. But I guess not. I mean, it could happen in any population. Yeah. This one I'll speak to is toxic exposures. And this was a study or a note from last year during the pandemic that California farm workers, 76 of them, actually died from virus exposure from the coronavirus. And what you're seeing here is people working in fields that are sprayed with several chemicals that are very toxic. And the interface of glyphosate, which is in Roundup, with a viral exposure dysregulates the immune system and enables the virus to penetrate and create more damage. We certainly see that people who are in a more poverty-based, marginalized community had a worse outcome from the pandemic. And they're having direct chemical exposure to the chemicals. It's on their hands. They're not wearing masks. They're eating the food. So as you said, they don't have the opportunity to have safe, clean food, and they don't know it. So this is pretty interesting list of sort of the biochemistry and physiology of mood disorder. And I'm suggesting that there's an emerging field of metabolic, epigenetic psychiatry. So I coined the term, but the idea is that metabolism affects genetic expression. So with most things, they go, well, my mom was depressed, my dad was depressed, I'm depressed, it's genetic tendencies, but the genes will express themselves based on attitude, environment, and exposures and lifestyle. So for people who are dealing with mood disorder, which is a pretty generic term, I thought about calling it depression or mental illness, but I'm keeping this more in the idea that there's quite a range from mild to severe, is that there's neuroinflammation, it's fire on the brain. So that's kind of interesting. And the nerves are not just between our ears. Our nerves are complete throughout our entire body. They're interfacing with stimulus and responding in however they do in terms of either inflammation, if it's a threat, or in calming down and cooling out if it's a safe condition. And people with mood disorders have multiple long-term nutritional deficiencies and toxicities because the quality of the food they eat is typically not great, or it's just downright poor. And this will lead to an endocrine imbalance and a metabolic dysregulation. So people will say, oh, I have a weak adrenal, or oh, I have a low thyroid, or oh, I have insulin resistance, I'm obese. So there's a lot of blame on people for being obese. The one thing that you need to do is lose weight. And if you lose weight, your immune system will work better. Well, if people are in a neurotoxic condition, they'll gain weight as a survival mechanism. So we have to look at the external environment that influences the internal environment. And this is something that's just not investigated. When people were relatively well, and all of a sudden they got sick and they had an exposure of something like mold or Lyme's or COVID or other kinds of infections, and it was not resolved, or it was poorly resolved, or they took antibiotics and then they had a secondary problem. This is really weakening the organism. And some people go, I'm just exhausted. It's sort of like the long haul COVID. Of course, one would be depressed if their energy output is weakened. And some or all of these will contribute to an altered neurotransmitter uptake. So neurotransmitters are amino acids, or they're actually biochemicals that are things like serotonin and dopamine and GABA and epinephrine, norepinephrine. So they need to be in a state of balance between excitatory and calming. And when people are neuroinflamed, it's very excitatory, and the calming ones are not being made or received. And this will disturb our sleep cycle, our rest cycle, what's called the circadian rhythm. And certainly all the stimulation around electromagnetics are really dysregulating for our neurological system. People with mood disorder, because they have a weakened system, they have poor digestion, show up with multiple food and chemical sensitivities. They're more vulnerable, they're more sensitive, they're more reactive. And they will have a disturbed microbiome, which is the ecology of the gut. So we looked at the farm workers out in the field having direct exposure to toxic chemicals. And the glyphosate actually is a form of an antibiotic, which kills the microorganisms in the soil. And when it gets into the gut, it has a disturbing or a damaging effect on the villi and the mucosa and the absorption sites. It's sad, it's tragic. And then that will allow for chemicals and particles and undigested food to hit the bloodstream and trigger a hyperimmune response. And because people are hurting on many different levels, they'll go for prescription medication, and or they'll depend on substance such as alcohol or recreational drugs or food abuse. So again, all of these things are going on to one degree or another. And then all of this is within a context of unresolved situational stress. And we saw that demonstrated by media, people who had prejudice because of their gender, because of their color, because of their backgrounds, their ethnicities, interracial marriages, the amount of prejudice. And for someone who is depressed, they're discriminated against by the doctors and by their colleagues. So how many times have women heard, oh, it's all in your head? Well, it's not at all. And that's totally disrespectful and inappropriate, because the doctors and the system is not taking time to look at the cause of the neuroinflammation, to address the deficiencies, and to support the system. It's quite a lot. This one is something that does not get airplay. When I work with doctors and psychiatrists, they say, Dr. Bauman, we believe in nutrition, but we think that nutrition could interfere or will interfere with the mechanism of action of our medication. So don't give people nutrients. I go, doctor, the information by William Walsh and Carl Pfeiffer and others shows that antidepressants, antipsychotics, stimulants, and benzodiazepines deplete, limit, rob, strip all of these nutrients that are necessary for energy and health and well-being. Wow. That's amazing. So even people who eat relatively well, but are on chronic medication to manage their psychosis or their mood disorder, are becoming weaker and weaker and weaker metabolically. They're gaining weight. How many people do you know put on 30 to 50 pounds when they went on medication? And they still felt lousy. They just felt kind of muted. It didn't work. So there's a real art and science to working with doctors for people who are on medication to get the best of both worlds and to titrate the dose and to assess for some of the nutritional insufficiencies that are going on as a result of treatment. Alcohol is a big problem. Alcohol misuse leads to poor social, economic, and health circumstances that trigger depression. So which came first, depression or alcohol? I think depression. Certain genes predispose a person to developing both alcohol problems and major depression. Metabolic changes a person experiences from alcohol can cause depression. So it's a vicious cycle. Depression triggers or serves as a vulnerability to developing alcohol use disorder. A third to a half of the people with alcohol use disorder are also suffering from major depression. And what I find that's scary there is there's mild, moderate, and major depression. And you know if they're in major depression, they're on major medication and they're drinking. That is a cocktail for disaster. And people will act out very erratically if this is their state of being. Just a few notes on anxiety. It's the most prevalent psychiatric disorder. A third of the population is affected by anxiety disorder during their life, more common in women. Again, the women. I don't know, men have these issues, but kind of live in a river of denial. So they must have some Egyptian in their background because they just ignore and deny all of these things. During midlife, prevalence is higher. And then teen anxiety is on the rise, and it's a major suicide risk factor. So with the pandemic, the incidence of anxiety has spiked. And it's very, very frightening. Panic disorders are really scary. And people are treated with antidepressants and antihistamines, beta blockers, anticonvulsants. So if somebody is anxious and they get on an anticonvulsant, they're extremely shut down. And benzodiazepines. These are habit-forming, they're dangerous, they're not a durable solution. So even on the label, it says, do not use continually. This is a 30-day trial. But people they find it helps them and they don't want to get off it, or when they get off it, they go through withdrawals that could be mitigated through nutrition, through lifestyle, and through support systems. Well, this is my favorite slide. Is really, we have so many tools that we can use to build resilience and to lose the blues. So with this, these are not behaviors that people who are depressed take advantage of. They're not outdoors in nature, being in a peaceful environment with trees and water. They're typically not choosing or not able to buy fresh, vibrant food or getting adequate hydration, a variety of beverages, moving, having reflection, quiet times, having a decent sleep cycle, going through a daily detox where they're hydrating and using herbs and spices to help their elimination systems, help their liver, their kidney, their lungs, their skin, to slough off metabolic waste and environmental contaminants. And the tool, art and music and play, is something that brings joy. It helps us lose the blues, helps us or helps people discover their inner artist, their sense of connection with the life force, universal language, music, art, dance. And to have a space for peace and quiet, to learn how to unplug, to power down, to not follow the news, not follow the social media. That drives young people and old people into a state of great disturbance because there's so much meanness and negativity that gets tossed around. To cultivate gratitude, to be grateful for life, to engage in prayer and service. So this prayer and service is something that comes along. It's the 12th step in the 12-step programs, is do help for others. So with mentorships, programs that Christina is involved in and others of us on this call, We can guide people to go out for a walk in nature. We can help people select healthy food. We can do movement practice together. There's very little benefit to saying, you should do this. Whenever someone shoulds on someone, I said, you can give them the word could. You could do this. You can do this. I will enable and support you in a good way. I will accompany you to learn how to do daily detox, to play with you, to share peaceful moments and blessings together. So I think the relationship is essential for this to happen. Christina, could you share some of the work you do? There's quite a bit going on here.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yes, I'll share a little bit about kind of what I'm doing in my personal life, and then also what I'm doing in my role at Harmony at Home. So one organization that I've been involved with for about 12 years now, it's a grassroots youth leadership development program called the Junior Youth Spiritual Empowerment Program. And this is a program, it's actually global, so worldwide, communities all across the world are implementing programs where we work with preteens, roughly between the ages of 11 to 14, and we form groups of about 10 to 15 youth per group. And typically these groups are with youth that are living within a kind of confined geographic area, living in the same neighborhood, some maybe even living in the same apartment building. And the purpose of this program is to get them thinking about leadership from a grassroots up model. I think a lot of what we see with particularly marginalized communities is that there's always this kind of top-down leadership approach where people are waiting to receive leadership from others that will either give them what they need or not give them what they need. And then our material development somehow becomes dependent on what we do or don't receive from them. So what we try to do with the Junior Youth Empowerment Program is really get them thinking about what are ways that I can feel empowered to take charge of my own spiritual and material development. So it's a combination of not just what do I need material in my life, but what do I need spiritually in my life? What is my being? Who am I going to be in the world? And then what is my doing? What am I going to actually go out and be action oriented and do in the world? And how can I be an agent of change in my neighborhood and in my community to be a leader and help make my community a better place? So I've been working with a group of all boys. I want to preface that all boys. I've got my hands full. I've been working with all boys in a apartment building in East Salinas. They named themselves the Spicy Bananas. So the Spicy Bananas have really been thinking about, again, like what can we do to make a difference in our neighborhood and be leaders? And I know one project that they did that they were so proud of is they signed up to be supporters of the Arbor Foundation, and they really wanted to support the growing of trees because they really are concerned about climate change as being a real issue that we deal with, and that it does trickle down to all of our local communities. So they did a lot of fundraising to do tree building for the Arbor Foundation. And then right before COVID, wouldn't you know it, right before COVID, they had decided that they wanted to help other residents of their building with tutoring, because we had a conversation about students in school, and one of my boys had made the comment, I feel like a lot of my classmates are just not motivated to be in school. They act like they don't want to be there. They don't apply themselves. And I said, oh, okay, well, what do you think contributes to that? What do you think the cause of that is? Well, I just think they are struggling, but they're embarrassed to admit they're struggling. And so they don't reach out for help. And then their parents, again, God bless them, they're out in the fields 10, 12 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week. So they can't always necessarily be there to help them with their homework, but then they fall behind and then they get embarrassed and don't want to admit they're falling behind. So I said, well, what can we do about that? And they said, well, we live in this apartment building, and this apartment building has a community room. What if we were to start a tutoring center here in the community room, and we could invite the younger members of our community to come and we can help them with their homework? that was a week before the shelter-in-place orders in March. So it was just a total bummer that the timing worked out the way that it did, and they weren't able yet to launch that service project. But we are hopeful now that things on June 15th, California finally opened up again, and so we should be able to start meeting in that community room again, and we're hoping to be able to still launch that project as a service to the community. So that's just an example of just something I've been engaged in my personal life, to really focus on service as a tool for mental and emotional well-being and spiritual and material empowerment. To speak a little bit about some of the programs that we offer at Harmony at Home. Again, Harmony at Home is a mental and behavioral health services agency, and we have a number of school and community partners that we work with across Monterey County. One of the programs that we offer is a bullying prevention program, and this program supports children and youth who are being bullied, as well as helps children and youth learn how to be what we call upstanders, to report bullying when they see it. Many of the children in our population, again, bullying is a huge issue. And a lot of it is also because of the cultural barriers. Because there is such a large Hispanic population, there's a lot of bullying that's happening because they're being treated as others. And again, this is not limited to just our population. I think, nationwide, internationally, a lot of what causes bullying is, again, this idea of some people feeling that they're different than others, and we treat others differently, and people are bullied because they feel like they're being treated as an other. So this is something that I hope that we can continue to address, because we know that racism does play a huge part in that. We also offer our Sticks and Stones program, which is a clinical counseling program to support children and youth who are facing trauma and have started to express themselves in really unhealthy ways. And we provide them with ongoing clinical counseling and support. And one of the things that I just love about this program is that it has an art therapy component. So again, going back to the tools that Dr. Bauman suggested, the arts is a huge, huge contributor to emotional and mental well-being. And so I'm just so pleased to know that we offer the arts as a component of that program. And we also have a program called Teen Success Inc. Teen Success Inc. is actually its own nonprofit organization, also located here in California. Their headquarters are in Milpitas, and they partner with different agencies statewide to administer the Teen Success program in their area. So Harmony at Home serves as the partner agency for Teen Success in Monterey County. And we provide social and emotional support, reproductive health, and parenting skills to help the parents nurture their young ones as they grow. Data is really showing us that this is helping to break the cycle of poverty from generation to generation, so that these teen moms are really able to learn the parenting skills that they need to be able to be supported in their educational and career goals. We help them to graduate high school or earn their GED, and again, as they're learning to be young moms. We're very excited that in July, Bauman Wellness is actually going to be coming to Salinas to offer a demonstrational workshop on making simple, healthy foods at home. And kind of how that came about is that we had one of our moms, she reached out to us and she said, I took my child to the doctor, and the doctor said, my child is overweight and needs to go on a diet. And then she's just literally falling apart in tears. And, because of course she's feeling judged and shamed, like she's not being a good enough mom. She's doing her best. She has limited resources, but her doctor is basically saying, yeah, your kid's overweight and you need to be healthier with your kid. So what we wanted to be able to do was in support of this mom, and of course, thinking one support of all of the moms that we work with, what are ways that we can support them in foods that they can afford, but also making healthy food choices. because we do believe that there are ways, even for the limitations that they have, for the food access limitations that they have, that there are better food choices that they could perhaps be making. And there are simple recipes and foods that they could be making at home that are going to be good for their health and for their baby's health. So God bless Bauman Wellness, who very lovingly offered to come and work with our population and just do, and actually, like, they're going to get the moms to come up and actually do some cooking with them. So they're not just watching, they get to actually be active participants and do some cooking with their demonstrators, so that they can learn simple recipes that they can do at home. So we're really, really excited about the instructors that are going to come and work with us.
You know, I now have so many people who want to come down. We're going to have a crew of learners, because we're learning with them. We want to know where they came from, what their family ate, what foods they enjoy. And then it's how to create simple, clean recipes. And what we'll do is with their permission, it's up to them, is create some videos. And that way they can share it. Because in any gathering, you get a small smattering of people, but there's just so many people like them that would go, this is what I need. You're speaking to me now. You're speaking to my population. And this will be bilingual or Spanish first language. And then in any group I do, there's always a couple of people who have talent and they want to be teachers themselves. So I'm going to welcome them into the Bauman Wellness community, welcome them into facilitator training, take advantage of their enthusiasm and their passion, and give them support so they can share this with others. So that's our community building model. And Christina, you know, you're such a great compliment to who we are and what we're doing. And it's great to, you know, work with you and share these models of success, because the world's looking for solutions, and it's things that we're demonstrating.
Thank you.
So this is so cool. So let's look at it. Let's look at sort of how do we build restorative nutrition. You know, a lot of us are nutritionists here. Eating for Health approach is the model I've used, and the term SOUL, it used to be seasonal, organic, unprocessed, and local, but I'm going SOLA. I'm adding the A there for affordable, because we're working with the world, and the world is largely people without a lot of money. So nutrition bandits steal your health. It doesn't look like mindful eating. It looks like she's pretty kind of, you know, pretty upset or whatever. And bandits are foods that have empty calories, they're nutrient poor, and they rob organ reserves. So I'm sure you could name a half a dozen off the top of your head. Oops, look at that. High in refined carbs. Boop, high in trans fats, which is vegetable oil, particularly soy oil or corn oil, which is genetically modified and has been hydrogenated to serve as margarine and spreads. Very, very unhealthy to the body. High in preservatives. So packaged processed food is plenty of colors, preservatives, and attitude. Low fiber, low essential fats, low vitamin minerals, low antioxidants, low in plant nutrients, phytonutrients like carotenes and flavonoids. Very disturbing to the gut flora. So high sugars, high refined starches, high chemicals. It's going to create damage to the gut, and harmful endotoxins, which are the metabolic byproducts. And this is the kind of food that people get on food stamps, or SNAP is what it's called now, or that people buy convenience food, crackers, chips, snack food, white bread, and pastries. And they trigger craving and overeating. So it's an interesting example. If any of us were to eat this type of food, as an example, you know, maybe for a week, would we look like her? Would we be eating ramen out of control there that cost 25 cents because that's really all she could afford? So craving and overeating is what goes on when foods are not healthy and strong and vitamin nutrient rich. So this is drugs. This is self-medication. This is what people reach for when they're down, when they're depressed, when they're unhappy. And you ask someone, well, why are you eating that? They go, because I like it. It makes me feel good. And then I'll say, well, why, how did you feel later? Oh, not so good. But I ate some more and I felt better. So what we know is there's a correlation between allergy and addiction, because we get a lift, it raises neurochemistry in our brain, might pick up some serotonin or some GABA. They're actually, the manufacture of taste in packaged foods to create cravings and addictions that are short-lived and keep people coming back for more. So food sensitivities are very common, and this is a pizza, so it has most of them. There's quite a few of them on there. And people love pizza, and kids love pizza. It's the ultimate convenience food. And I think dairy is okay if it's organic and it's local and the cows are eating grass. And if it's ideally, it would be raw milk that was cultured. So I'm not anti-dairy, I'm not anti-wheat. I'm more concerned about conventional dairy, which has growth hormones and antibiotics and bleaching agents and other types of preservatives that are not on the label. And wheat products, traditional wheat has 12% protein, modern wheat is 28% protein. So people with poor digestion, insufficient hydrochloric acid or pancreatic enzymes, they don't have the capacity to metabolize refined foods. You would think white flour crust would be low gluten, but actually it's high gluten. And corn, 90% of the corn is genetically modified. And high fructose corn syrup is really the sweetener of choice. And for normal people, they're getting high fructose corn syrup in most packaged foods, many different beverages. And it's very inflammatory. It builds this kind of neuroinflammation with stimulation, like the Dr. Pepper, that then fades out and leads to depression and craving sugar. And soy is a genetically modified food. Organic soy is a good food. It's tolerable in proper amount. And eggs that have also been commercially raised, and peanuts, which can be a mold carrier. There are more and more kids now who are sensitive to mold, largely because of fungus. That these nuts and seeds and grains have been stored for too long. They get exposed to moisture. They get contaminated, but they don't throw them away. So it's necessary for people with these types of issues. It's not necessary, but it's certainly advisable to do a modified elimination diet, to do a simpler diet, to see what happens with 2 to 4 weeks of elimination of maybe 3 to 5 of these, and see if it affects their mood, because they actually create opiates. So a wheat product will create an opiate in the brain that sort of makes people feel mellow until it wears off, and then they'll feel irritated. So here's a well-balanced meal. And for us, it's fairly routine. We see there's some vegetables, there's some cooked and raw, there's an unrefined starch, could be brown rice, could be a piece of fish or chicken or legumes, and some avocado or seeds, nuts, olives for good fat. So that's a decent plate of food, and it's not a large plate of food. So portions and proportions are very important. Is we've been given these larger and larger burritos, and we just feel compelled to eat it all because we're emotional, or we have kind of emotional hunger, not physical. So the model that I created, wellness practices to nourish mental well-being, is empowering for people and populations. So we live in a world of people. We live in circles of circles of circles, and it's hard to be well when the people around you are sick. I'm sure we've all experienced this. We go visit our friends or our family, and we're doing healthy practices, and they go, "Ooh, you're making me nervous. You're judging me." So our goal is to really share it with them and to welcome them to increase their own sense of strength and resilience by joining us. So here's the model I created. It's 5 key wellness practices. And it's rather simple, and there could be other behaviors, but I think 5 is a good number, is to eat mindfully, to move joyfully, to reflect peacefully, to relate with heart and love, and to serve as much as possible. So if you look at this, each one of these has a strong body of evidence that say people who eat well, who take care of their nutritional needs, have less depression, are able to get off of medication, able to raise their vibration, their energy, and be productive. Okay, that's there. People who do regular exercise, who move great, who do yoga, who do stretching, who do weight management, who do sports, who have joyful movement, not greedy, grin and bear it, or on the treadmill watching the news. To me, that's not a wellness practice, okay? Is take a walk in nature. People who move regularly have greater physical health. Humans are physical beings. People who learn to meditate, learn to reflect, learn to relax, learn to ponder, to contemplate, to study. Tremendous benefit. It calms the nerves, it settles the immune system, it improves digestion. People make better choices. People don't have healing relationships. So many people are lonely. When people are unhappy, they don't relate well. People don't want to be with them. They don't want to be with people. There's a lot of judgment, argument, criticism. So we can help build relationships, talk about communication practices, create harmony at home or our house, where people are validated for who they are. They don't have to argue for their humanity. They don't have to say, I'm gay and I'm okay. They're just okay. They're human beings. Love is love. Love is colorblind. And then working together to reach out, to go beyond narcissism, and to say, how can we elevate our community? How can we teach wellness and be together and do projects together? Because all of this really builds a spiral of wellness that will include some people over here in the beginning, the early adapters, people in the middle who are the middle adapters, and eventually the late adapters, because they'll see they're missing out on the party. Other people are getting well and they're still drinking and smoking and complaining. Exercise is not only changes in your body, it changes your mind, your attitude, and your mood. So that's a beautiful sight of a woman outdoors under the sky, gracefully moving. And somebody could say, well, that's not me. I'm old, I'm sick, I'm tired. It could be me, it could be you, it could be anybody. And sometimes we need to do this together. Don't believe every worried thought you have. Worried thoughts are notoriously inaccurate. It's very important. When people are not well, when people are not well nourished, when people are having medication issues, they're paranoid, they're delusional, they're rot, they're obsessive compulsive. I mean, it's interesting the amount of mental disturbance people have because they're not doing wellness practices and they're not in a state of calm in the moment. So we have to remind people that just because you think somebody hates you, the answer is they probably don't care about you. And that it's better to reflect on your own beauty and your own strength and show kindness to them, and then they'll reflect that back to you. Mindfulness is really cool. It's an intentional timeout. So, I'm taking a timeout, taking 10 minutes now, and it can be any time of day to tune in, just to get away, be quiet, simmer down, turn the heat down on your burn. Observe yourself and your surroundings and listen to what's happening. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? And to calm yourself. CALM is an acronym for centered and living in the moment. So you just say, calm down, Eddie, calm down. And to be aware, to be non-judgmental. That's a powerful practice. People do bad things. Behaviors are bad. If they're hurtful or harmful or mean or any of that stuff. But you have to recognize that these are people who are immature and who are unwell, at least in that moment. And they will respond to loving kindness, which will enable them to find a place of center in themselves. And to learn to meditate, to sit quietly, to relax, to reflect. This is what balances the nervous system. This is what cools neuroinflammation. We can't do it with just herbs. We can't do it with just B vitamins. Nutrition plays a role, but mindfulness practice is self-regulation to simmer down and to cultivate inner peace. All of these practices work together. Human relationship is that we're about as healthy as the people we spend time with. One of my good buddies, who I have tea with every morning, I've heard about his wife, his kid, his family, his issues. And this morning he said, I think I'm going to move. I think I'm going to get a place by myself for a while, because people are not wanting to be well where I am, and they're not supporting me in my efforts to be well. I need to find people who share similar values and goals and behavior. And he's a bubbly guy. He's an up-tempo guy. But his wife is severely depressed, alcoholic, and won't respond to getting help. I said, really, she needs help. She needs to get to dry out. And it's a tough process. So what we see and hear all the time is there's family of origin dysfunction. And there is. We saw that from the ACEs slides. It's extremely common and it's very traumatic, and it comes up, it gets re-stimulated. But if we're in a mindful state, we go, wow, I can see you're heavily triggered. What's going on? Not, I don't like it, would you stop that now? And what we know is that love heals, love connects, and it validates our true being. Communication is a skill to practice and to polish. George Bernard Shaw said the thing about communication is the assumption that it exists. That it's remarkable how people have poor manners, are very impulsive, or very irritating. They at the drop of a hat, they'll tell you what's on their mind. They're not filtering their thoughts. They're not aware of the energy they're having on other people. And we have to tell them, it's a little too much right now. It's too much information. So let's practice communication. Let's do it together. Let's listen. Don't interrupt me. I'm working on that. Thoughts, feelings, and values either attract or separate us. That's very interesting. High thoughts, positive thoughts, good feeling, high-minded values attract us to people with the same values. That's really the core of the Bauman wellness community. And people who are upset and who are aggravated and angry, they seem to cluster together. They go to bars, they go to different kinds of meetings and growls with each other, but they're very lonesome. Conflict, which is inevitable, challenges us to engage carefully. So we don't avoid conflict. We recognize conflict and we go, I better be careful here. And we make choices to relate with appreciative people, people who care about us, people who see us, people who support us, who have our back. If we do something that's off-putting, they go, that was tough, but it's okay. I want you to help you work it through because I know you'll help me work it through. Social genomics is very interesting. It's the genetic dispositions for individuals and groups. Social stress is a stronger predictor of chronic disease mortality. Now think about that. Mortality, death, social stress, not getting along, no friends, bad situation, social media is killing me, is a stronger predictor of chronic disease mortality than physical inactivity. Alcohol use and smoking. There's a lot of energy on, sitting is the new smoking. Alcohol is harmful. Well, social stress is a bigger predictor, and suicide is going up, homicide is going up. Wellness needs to mitigate that. So, Christine, we're about towards the end of the program. How do we awaken the artist within?
I am so glad you asked that.
Right up your alley.
Yeah, one of the things Dr. Bowman asked me to do was talk about the arts, and I was like, I am all over that because that's what I do.
Hey, we're in
That's
your
not even
wheelhouse.
just what I do. It's like who I am. I'm a huge advocate of the arts and the power of the arts as a tool for healing and spiritual, mental, and emotional well-being. The arts really offer evidence-based solutions for promoting mental health, and they're a very powerful tool for trauma-focused healing and for overall self-care and inner well-being. Engagements with the arts has shown to lower depression and feelings of loneliness, increase our mental and physical health, and the creation of the arts relieves stress. It encourages creative thinking, increases brain plasticity, and offers other mental health benefits. Jeremy Noble, who's the founder of the Foundation for Arts and Healing, he and his colleague Heather Stuckey have really done a lot of extensive research on the arts. And they found 4 different primary creative therapies as a tool for healing: music engagement, visual arts therapy, movement-based creative expression, and creative writing. And one of the things that I'm going to be doing tomorrow, if you're available tomorrow at 4:00, I'm offering a workshop called The Artist Within. And what I mean by the artist within is that I think that even though we know, like from everything that I just shared, we know that the arts is a powerful tool. A lot of people tend to put up barriers around using the arts because of like the stigma we have in our mind of what it means to be able to do art or to be an artist. And I think that a lot of people, they really focus on art as, well, an artist is a professional. It's something that they do professionally and they sell it and they make money, or they're so good at it that it actually looks like something specific and it looks really great. That's what people think of when they think of being an artist. I think that's, in my opinion, hogwash. I think being an artist means bringing out all of your inner being to come out and play with you. It's not about what it looks like. It's actually about the process. It's about the process of whether you're picking up a paintbrush or you're picking up a colored pencil or you're picking up a pen or you're picking up a flute, like whatever you're picking up. It's about the process of actually creating the art that just completely changes your whole dynamic. So the workshop is really going to focus on, it's kind of got few different components to it. So one component is, again, just kind of clarifying that everyone is an artist. We all have an innate desire and capacity to create art. And some, like the Mozarts of the world, will develop that capacity to its fullest, and others of us will just continue doing it because we love it and it's part of the process. So we'll talk a bit about just the kind of myth busting around the stigma around what it means to create art. I'm going to take people through a guided meditation to meet our artist within. So we're going to bring that inner artist within us out to come play with us for the workshop. And then I'm going to send everyone off for a little bit to do a little bit of art making. And again, we'll come back, we'll reflect as a group on kind of the process of that. And then my dear friend Dion, who's going to be co-facilitating the workshop with me, she is going to be providing resources for how to tap into, either at a local level or at a national level, ways that we can engage with the arts in a community setting. Wow. So we're just really excited about our whole lineup for tomorrow. So if you're free at 4, Saturday the 19th, come and join us. We just really would welcome everyone who wants to come.
I love your enthusiasm. And you're right. We're all creative beings. We just need guidance and support and just everything's good. Showing up is all you got to do is show up. Yes. It's hard when you're depressed, right? So we're building these wellness practices so that people's energy can rise and they can actually think straight and start to, have vision in their mind that they can express however it comes through.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah, I think studies have shown that even just doing 30 minutes a day of the arts just completely enhances your well-being.
Yep. Well, that's what we're going to work on. We're building a wellness model for individuals and community. The 5th wellness practice is service which is really a form of embodied spirituality. People go, oh, I'm a very spiritual person, I believe in God and all that. But service is doing. Service is building this society that really represents high values, and doing it together and doing it joyfully. We listen to the calling of our soul to direct us how and where to serve. That's why people join a community. That's why people go to church. That's why people volunteer, is to do service. We offer support to those in need who want to regain resilience, vitality, and joy. That's a definition of wellness, is resilience, vitality, and joy. You say, well, my friend doesn't want to. I mentioned my good buddy, his wife, she's not ready. Okay, fine. Go ahead, take care of yourself. And then she may say, well, I want some of that too. Wellness looks good. I want some of that wellness. No act of kindness goes unnoticed. Well, what I mean by that is in an energetic level, we're all throwing stones into a pond and creating ripples. And the more ripples of goodness and kindness and service and wellness, the more that pond will circulate and purify, and more people can be in it with us. World wellness will reflect a quantum shift from selfishness to oneness. Interesting. Right now, we're in a materialistic culture. It's everyone for themselves, greed, 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 lie, 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 all that stuff, which we know is false narrative. We know it's wrong, but it's very disturbing. It makes us lose confidence and faith. Collaborative service gives us hope. It gives us collective guidance. When we're together, it opens up susceptibility to higher learning. When I'm with Christina, my intelligence grows, my artistic grows. When she's with me, her nutritionist and wellness activity and inspiration grows. We inspire each other because we love being together and we love doing things together. And this is our calling. And it's nice to know your calling and to do it.
Right back at you, Dr. B.
Yeah, right on, girl. And we're going to have a lot of Christina at the Berkeley Wellness Center this summer. So friends, invite you near and far, virtually and in person. We're going to be doing a lot of arts and theater and wellness work together. Yay. So we have to demonstrate wellness works, right? Mental wellness, which is different than mental illness. We're not defeating mental illness. We're supporting and nourishing mental wellness. Well, what we will demonstrate is wellness practices are performed on a daily level. So for each of us, take a look at your food, your movement, your mindfulness, your relationship, and your service, and see which one you can bump up 10 or 20%, make a commitment. And programs are provided to facilitate and support wellness practices. When I did yoga the other day in this workshop, it was really beneficial for me because I don't do regular yoga, but I was guided by Rebecca. It was hot and sweaty up here where I am, but I did it because I was with her and with my Bauman Wellness colleagues, and I didn't feel embarrassed that I was stiff. Well, of course I'm stiff. I sit in a chair all day. Research demonstrates efficacy for each practice. So as I said, better diet, better exercise, etc., prevents and manages mental illness. People do so little. Our society, our culture is so unwell. So what our data that we will collect will show a synergistic effect of 5 wellness practices across time for diverse individuals and population. What works for which group, how long, how much. To me, it's not a matter of will it work, but it's a matter of how long it will take for people to jump in with 2 feet. Because there's still a lot of ambivalence. People like to drink, they like to watch TV, they like to argue. I don't, and I haven't. So again, this thing about finding a better way, wellness is an operating system. Wellness practices done easily, effortlessly, whatever amount you feel, you don't have to do 20 minutes. If you do 10 minutes, fine. You do half an hour, fine. It doesn't have to be rigid or gritty. It just has to come through a Taoist flow. This is what we're looking to cultivate and seeing how it works with different populations. These are examples of our programs. We have some fabulous programs that are self-paced. People can join the Bauman Wellness community, can purchase, watch videos, learn, have textbooks. Brighten Up is the most related to overcoming anxiety, depression, and insomnia. We're really focusing on kids culinary. That's going to be our practice this summer and some delivery in the fall. So we'll be doing some kids culinary in different populations, different languages, and then resilience and recovery are really, it's essential for people dealing with turbulence, because right now it's nice. Right now, people are going out, things are open, it's pretty cool, but you know, we're still going through an enormous amount of turbulence. So we can't kid ourselves that, you know, everything is cool. We have to really step up our game to be able to deal with whatever comes our way. These are outlines for Brighten Up. I'm not going to go through it. For resilience and recovery. And this is a request that you contribute to bowmanwellness.com at Donate, because we are a nonprofit. We provide a tax benefit if you contribute to us. We're raising money for Our House, which is a recipient from me, the other. They're doing beautiful work. They're changing the lives of people. And the more that we can gather some financial support in small, medium, or very large amounts, the more people we can reach, the more outreach we can do. We can start to build our infrastructure. We're really only about a year or two old, so we're young, but we're growing, and we really appreciate your support.
I love that it moves everything that you're doing, moves it into creating wellness out of an illness. And I love that. What I like about it is that it's taking something that we consider a weakness and consider disease and consider negative and turning it into a positive because it is empowering to work on yourself. It's empowering to be creative and expressive. It's empowering to change, to be able to change the weakness into the strength.
And to help others.
And then, and then
get outside of ourselves. It's like, wow, I can help others.
Yeah.
Mental health is an industry. Mental health is really a big, kind of discipline, and mental wellness is different.
Okay, mental wellness.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Because somebody can be sick and be wounded, and they can learn to be well. That doesn't mean everything goes away quickly. No. But this kind of team thing, this family thing that we do, you do it very well. It really lifts people's spirits.
I love the whole thing, and today it was brought basically what was my reason for joining Bauman Wellness.
Oh, yeah.
I think it is all the calling that I had already started getting, and it seems to me that the path has been kind of like just going towards that, and it's just coming in everything together.
Christina's passion and enthusiasm came through so clearly for me and clearly for all of us, because we were commenting like crazy. And I'm really excited about your workshop, Christina, ever since I heard about it 2 weeks ago. And I think your passion is very clear. And what I really, really admire is that your work that you do on such a human level, it's not just conceptual, and it's not just, getting donations, but it's like actually that the story about you working with the boys and setting up a tutoring center. I just really admire hearing about that, because that's, to me, that's the heart of like what we do, or what we strive to do as humans, as people. So I really admire that. And and Dr. B, I think your talk is such a good pointer, is a good lesson for us, because, we've been kind of doing presentations all this week, but I really liked how you drew in every kind of like it's almost like a ripple effect. You threw the stone in, and then you kind of showed how it affects them. So I really enjoyed everything. Was very heartful. And when I could hear about the spiritual part, because I think sometimes we do the spiritual work and But for those of us, there's so many of us that do our spiritual work on our own. So it's a matter of also trying to figure out how to expand that work so that our spiritual selves out and really connect with the community and how we can come of service. That was a really big takeaway for me. And I think that will be on my mind and thinking about that. But
too, that this program that I referred to, the Junior Youth Spiritual Empowerment Program, this is a global grassroots program, and anyone can be trained to start a group in their neighborhood. Right. And I'm actually trained to train others to become, we call them animators. So not animators like drawing cartoons, but the facilitators of the groups are called animators because they bring the group to life. It's like a metaphor for bringing the group to life. So I am a trainer of those who would like to become facilitators of youth groups. So if anyone's interested in starting a youth group in their neighborhood, hit me up and I'll talk to you about the training. I'm happy to share that information.
Oh man, that's so cool.
So good.
What's the age range for that? How young do you train? I mean, what's the youngest age that you might train someone?
Typically it's between 11 to 14. It's primarily for middle schoolers, but there's some, like I think initially when the program started, it was 12 to 14, but then we had some 11-year-olds that were really eager to enter the program. And, you know, I think there were kind of almost rising 12-year-olds, and it certainly had the capacity to be part of that. So yeah, I would say anywhere between 11 to 14. And then we loved, I mean, anybody of any age can be a facilitator of a group. We particularly love to be able to train those between the ages of 15 to 30, because they are closer in age to the middle schoolers. And really the role of the facilitator is to be an older mentor. So it's kind of getting away from like, I'm not your parent, I'm not your teacher, I'm like your older brother and sister, I'm your older friend, I'm your mentor, and I'm walking this path of service with you. So when you're planting these trees or picking up garbage at the beach or building this tutoring center, you're not doing it on your own. I'm there to work with you and we're doing it together. So that's really kind of what the role of an animator or facilitator is to really be an older mentor and to engage in the service with the youth and help them with everything that they need to succeed.
Personally, I really enjoyed it. As usual, you taught me something very profound in a short period of time. So thank you.
I hope it's rubbing off on you, Alan. You know, we're as good as the company we keep. So I learned from you, you learn from me, we learn together.
Yeah, I just like the whole connection of everything from, you know, gosh, like movement, eating, you know, all, that whole
practices,
mindfulness, all of it, you know, the whole, what was it, foundations of wellness. Yeah, I like how that all ties in.
I just really appreciate the interactiveness and the collaboration and the knowledge that everybody's fusing in together.
And that's what we're all about here is when Em and Jean are teaching, it lifts our spirit. When Alan and I are teaching, we all get a boost from that because we're mixing left brain, right brain. We're mixing body, mind, heart, and soul. It's really a nice soup that we're creating together. And when people jump in the soup, there's an energetic shift. And then if they stay in that, it's a paradigm shift. It's not just nutrition. It's not just psychology. It's not just sociology. It's really a composite package.